Dear colleagues, welcome to this presentation of our joint work on indexical externalism and terms that refer to social phenomena. We are Philippe de Brabanter from Université Libre de Bruxelles and Bruno Leclercq from Université de Liège. Now, the question we want to address in our research is whether there are social kinds, as you might call them, the way that there are so-called natural kinds. In other words, are the social sciences likely ever to hit upon essences the way that the natural sciences do or seem to do? Conversely, are all social phenomena purely theoretical constructs? Now, the relevant literature is rife with heated epistemological and metaphysical debates about, notably, whether there are natural kinds, if so, what exactly these natural kinds are, and what types of phenomena they subsume. Now, in spite of the richness of those epistemological and metaphysical debates, our own objective in this research is to attempt to clarify these issues from the perspective of the philosophy of language. And the way we intend to do this is by looking into the ranges of general terms, whether they are traditionally assumed to refer to natural phenomena or social phenomena. So general terms that are perceived by speakers as rigid designators of kinds. And in this, we are motivated, at least in part, by realist intuitions about terms that denote social phenomena, which we think we share with lay speakers. And these intuitions are reflected notably in our conviction that when people have debates about social phenomena, these debates are not merely metalinguistic. In previous work, we have distinguished three different brands of semantic externalism. Now, what they have in common, of course, is this idea that the meanings of words are not in the head of the speaker, of the language user. Now, these three brands are what we've called, what we've labeled indexical, conventional, and usage-dependent externalism, and we have used foundational figures to typify them, Kripke and Putnam for indexical externalism, Burge 1979 for conventional externalism. Burge's views have changed in the course of time, but Burge 1979 we think is a good representative of what we call conventional externalism. And then finally there's usage-dependent externalism represented by Wittgenstein. Now, typically, these externalist theories are assumed to explain the meaning determination of particular categories of words. Water, gold, tiger, words that refer to natural phenomena in the case of indexical externalism, for example, and then different categories of words for conventional and usage-dependent externalism. Now, on each of these different brands of externalism, the idea is that the meaning of a word is determined along different lines. So in the case of indexical externalism, the explanation would appeal to ostension of a referent, and the referent itself may have a hidden nature. In the case of conventional externalism, it would be the expert's definitions that would fix the semantics, the semantic value of a particular word. And in the case of usage-dependent externalism, it would be the speech community practice. So, as we can see in general, indexical externalism is assumed to be designed to explain the semantics of terms of the natural sciences. And when it comes to the terms of the social sciences, these are assumed to fall under conventional or usage-dependent externalism. Okay. Now, what our investigation proposes to do is to check if that is true. And in particular, we ask the question, are there terms of the social sciences whose semantics should be accounted for along the lines of indexical externalism. And we think we can answer those questions within the framework of the philosophy of language because it supplies us with a useful tool, and that useful tool is semantic deference. Now, what is semantic deference? Well, semantic deference relies essentially on this idea that other people may know what I mean better than I do. Now, it's a sort of truism that we are not all Humpty Dumptys, that language users are bent on using words the way that other members of their speech community or a certain subset of these do. And this entails that they're disposed to be corrected if and when they use the words improperly, and that they also might accept that they express falsehoods resulting from improper understanding of words they've used. Now, the assumption that we make, and that is central to our, let's say, empirical approach to externalism, is that different patterns of deference ground different brands of semantic externalism. And the good thing from our point of view is that deference is an empirical phenomenon, and it can therefore be empirically investigated. And this way, we can move beyond the intuitions of philosophers, which are often sensitive to epistemological and metaphysical considerations. Okay, let's delve a little bit more into semantic deference. So, assume that a speaker utters sentence 1, and assume that they defer to experts for the fixation of the meaning of synecdoche. Then the truth conditions of 1 should be something along the lines of Cicero's prose is full of what the experts mean by synecdoches. And that is whatever the way the speaker represents the meaning of synecdoche. Now, assume an utterance of sentence number 2. Again, if the speaker defers to the speech community, well, no, not again, but in this case, if the speaker defers to the speech community for the fixation of the meaning of games, then the truth conditions would be along the lines of what you find in the next cell. And again, that is whatever the way the speaker represents the meaning of games. As we can see, deference works as an excellent mechanism to account for intuitions about truth conditions. And if we want to do the same thing for a sentence like, we found an elm at the back of the garden, and we want to do this along the lines of indexical externalism, then the kind of semantic deference that we need is actual deference to the world. This would deliver the right truth conditions. But of course, nobody really defers to the world. So we need to find a proxy for this deferential, for the deferee of this deferential mechanism. And the proxy will be experts of the future. Experts of the future on the assumption that science continues to make progress and gets us ever closer to uncovering the nature of things. So what are the predictions that we make in terms of the relations between semantic deference and the different brands of externalism that we distinguished earlier? Well, the idea would be that if we observe lay speakers to defer to the current experts, then this observation will support conventional externalism. If we observe patterns of deference oriented to the whole community practice, this will support usage-dependent externalism. And if deference chooses as its deferee future experts, more so than present experts or current usage, then that would offer support to indexical externalism. And of course, what we'd like to know is whether deference to future experts, as a proxy for deference to the world, is observed in connection with words that denote not just natural phenomena, but words that denote social phenomena and which then perhaps could be called social kind terms. Okay, in order to do this, so we have a set of hypotheses here. In order to test them, what we need to do, and this is what we're currently doing, is to conduct an empirical investigation. And in the next few slides, I'm going to offer a very brief description of this empirical investigation. So we're using an online survey. It is targeted at lay speakers, not at philosophers with preconceived ideas about natural kinds, social kinds, their epistemology, their metaphysics. And we have chosen 16 different words. A lot of them have some connection with some relevant literature, especially in the philosophy, but in part also in psychology. And as you can see, we have words that refer to natural phenomena. Those are in green. We have words that refer to clearly social phenomena. Those are in red. Then there are words about which you could be slightly more hesitant as to how you should classify them. But we have a very large range of words. Maybe one strikes you as particularly odd. That's Zerkaum. Zerkaum is an invented name for an invented natural kind. This comes from research by UC Yilke and colleagues. So in this empirical investigation we're conducting, there are different steps to be taken by our respondents. And in stage 1, the lay speakers are asked to assess on 5-point Likert scales the truth value of a number of categorical statements that use the word we're interested in predicate position. And so one example would be a piano is a piece of furniture, but you could also have things like atmospheric clouds are water. And the respondents are asked to judge these as being definitely false, all the way through definitely true, with a number of intermediate positions. And when they've done that in stage 2, they're then offered to choose between 4 kinds of information. They're offered to choose the kind that they would like to have at their disposal in order to refine their previous answers. And this way, we're hoping to assess their deferential preferences or deferential dispositions. So let's have a look at that. So the first kind of information that is on offer is a list of features that can help them identify the criteria that they themselves use in order to understand the word furniture or define the word furniture. And we're proposing additional criteria to help them make their assessments more rigorous. And if that's what they opt for, we've allowed for that possibility. If that's what they opt for, then this would be consistent with internalism. Actually, in this case, there is no deference. They defer to themselves. They rely on themselves, and that would vindicate internalism for that speaker with respect to that particular word. Now, if they opt for information about the way that the speech community uses the word furniture, that could be evidence in favor of usage-dependent externalism. If, on the other hand, they ask for a definition of the word furniture by current experts, for example, from an encyclopedic dictionary or encyclopedia of furniture, that would support or be consistent with at least conventional externalism. A bit more difficult is case D. If what they are interested in are suggestions as regards potential results of future scientific investigation of furniture, this would be consistent with indexical externalism. So, after stage 2, speakers or respondents are again offered to confirm or change their previous truth value assessments, and this way we want to see whether not only would they orient towards particular kinds of deferees, but also whether they would take on board this additional information that they get from the deferees. Now, there are further aspects to our inquiry which we don't have time to go into now. It's time to move on to the conclusions. So what are we trying to do in this research we're conducting? We're trying to clarify the question whether there are social kinds the way that there are natural kinds. And we're doing this by approaching this question from the angle of the philosophy of language. More precisely, by checking whether words that refer to social phenomena may behave like words referring to natural phenomena, meaning whether they may have their meaning determined as hypothesized by indexical externalism. And the procedure that we've opted for is an empirical investigation of the way that lay speakers semantically differ with respect to these words. Thank you very much for your attention, and we're ready to take your questions and to debate these issues with you. Thank you very much.